Okay, and then let's make sure we fully respect them. Yes, Steve, please.
Okay, guys, firstly, thank you so much for most of you, especially your former tutor, said that you did a really good job in listening to Joanna's story in the presentation and watching the video of her being on The Apprentice, especially. That was the main reason why we've got her in today. But more than just The Apprentice, Joanna's used that as a huge stepping stone for doing really, really great things in business now. She's only my age, I know a lot of people think I'm super old, but she's only 24 years old, and yet she's already has such a big name in business, and she's also been on TV chat shows and stuff like that. I'm just letting you meet, and like Cersei, she's doing it for free. It's a huge deal for us at Harrop to get people like this in, so you can see how people can come from normal backgrounds and go so far in life. So please do give her the respect that I would expect from you, and that she would. I'm already concerned with that group of boys over there, and if I've got to split you up in this, I'm going to be very, very angry. Okay, your row, Diogo, your row. I'm not impressed already, so prove to me that I can be impressed with you by the end of this, please. Finally, hopefully there will be a chance for questions at the end. Some of you are already prepared with some, but if you think of a question that you want to ask her, please don't shy away from that opportunity. And last but not least, Joanna's been really kind and said after the bell's gone, once we can dismiss you all, if you want to meet her, have a bit of a chat, ask her anything in person, take a picture with her, anything, she's really happy to do that as well. So feel free to hang about and get to know her at the end as well. Okay, I'm going to leave you to it. Joanna, when you're ready, we're all ready for you.
Hi, guys. So, it always feels really weird to me whenever I have to do a speech, especially at a school, because it really doesn't feel that long ago since I was back at school in these uniforms, sat at assembly, similar to this. When I think about my school life and going to university, if someone had tapped me on the shoulder when I was a student and said to me, Joanna, after graduation, within 2 years, you'll be sat on national television pitching for £250,000 business investment from Lord Sugar, I would have probably laughed. And the reason why I would have probably laughed is because there is no step-by-step guide from going from school to college to university to Lord Sugar's boardroom. But I think 3 things that have been really consistent in my life has been obviously hard work, which I'm sure a lot of you right now are working really hard towards your qualifications and your GCSEs in the future. Confidence in myself and my own ability, but I think mostly one of the things that's been really instrumental in my life has been the ability to really recognise opportunity when it's right in front of me. So I want to ask you a question, and I'm sure this won't be a shock in terms of the result, but who here's on social media? Instagram, Facebook? Yeah, everyone, exactly. So you'll all be really familiar with memes then, yeah? So I absolutely love sharing a funny meme on Instagram and Facebook, but I also love sharing really inspirational memes as well and quotes, whether it's about business, whether it's an inspirational quote, or anything that's kind of full of wisdom and the meaning of life. One quote actually that I've shared quite recently is from one of my favourite books. It's called The Alchemist by a writer called Paulo Coelho. Some of you will get to probably read it in the future because it is like a worldwide top seller. But the quote that I shared on my social media was, "A person's only obligation is to find one's destiny." I'll let that sink in. A person's only obligation is to find one's destiny. And this didn't really make sense to me until I'd gone through the whole apprentice process, and looked back at some of the things that have happened in my life and really looked at the journey that I've been on. And anybody, when I look back now at that particular journey and I look at the book in correspondence to it, I think about the journey that the boy goes through in this particular book. The story is about a boy who basically goes on a quest for some treasure and some gold in Egypt. But what you end up finding out within this book is that it's not necessarily about the wealth that he ends up finding in this particular, treasure quest. It's actually about the journey that he goes through. So it's about the people that he meets, and it's about the experiences that, come together at the end to build up to what he is actually searching for. So let's throw it back to 1993. As Miss Buchanan said, we're not that old. Born in 1993. I was actually born in a little country called Gambia in West Africa. Moved to the UK when I was 6, and it was a massive struggle for myself and my mum because she was a single mum, and I was actually, living in one of the worst areas of the town when I'd first moved to the UK. And I think seeing my mum really struggle and try to provide for me throughout my early life really gave me the drive to want to do well and also, start to help out and bring money into the house. So as soon as I turned 16 and I could get a job, I went into, the local high street and got a job at a clothing boutique. And in this clothing boutique, I absolutely loved the clothes, obviously, but it was owned by 2 business partners, 2 men, who didn't necessarily know much about the clothes. But I really threw myself into this job. I used to get paid £30 a week every single Saturday, and they started to see the initiative that I used to have in this particular job. I used to, style the mannequins. I used to, look after the shop while they'd go on breaks. And I really used to try hard in that particular position. So they actually kind of gave me a mini promotion and let me go buying with them to pick some of the clothes that would stock in the shop. So that was kind of like my first experience of going out and, buying clothes and having that bit of, entrepreneurial spirit. From there, I ended up going to college, studied English literature, which Miss Buchanan will be happy to know, geography and government and politics. And while I was there, I already had that work ethic and that drive, to want to do extracurricular stuff and get myself out there and be doing things outside of school. And I decided I want to learn something different. What's really random that's really cool that I can learn? So I ended up signing up to do 1 night a week classes for British Sign Language. So by the end of college, I ended up doing level 1 and level 2 in British Sign Language. And I thought, right, I know what I want to be, after this. I want to be a sign language interpreter. I want to be one of those little people, at the side of the TV, but I'm just going to make it so much more fabulous and I'm going to dress up really cool and glam. By the end of it, though, I thought, I don't really know whether sign language is, something that I want to really do in the end. I love learning it, but I'll actually just enroll to a really good university and do a politics degree. And while I was there, again, that drive and that work ethic that had been planted in me since 16 of having that part-time job, really drove me to be seeking different jobs while I was studying full-time at uni. So I had an internship in recruitment, I worked in a politics office at one point, I worked on a makeup counter, but also I didn't want to waste my sign language qualification, so I also used to do 1 morning a week at a local deaf school, volunteering in the morning. And at the time, it was something that I wanted to do and I had that drive in me. But now in hindsight, when I think about some of the extracurricular stuff that I've done, by the time I was graduating, I had so many things on my CV that I could sit in front of an employer and say, when they say to me, Joanna, tell me a time when you've, shown leadership skills, show me a time when you've learned something new that was a challenge. I had so many different examples by this point at the age of 21 to give an employer. Again, I got to a crossroads in my life and I thought, what do I want to do right now? And I'd actually been going for a lot of graduate scheme interviews at this point, which were going great, and I was progressing further and further through the process. But one thing that I'd noticed was that every time I went to dress for these interviews, there wasn't really anything cool or readily available. Everything was really kind of frumpy in terms of the work clothes that I wanted to wear. And I thought, wouldn't it be really good if somebody set up a one-stop shop for young women where they could go and get affordable and stylish clothing for work? And I thought, this is the business that I want to set up one day. But it was in the back of my head. And at this point, I really didn't know what to do. And one thing that you'll notice with this story so far, guys, is that I didn't have a clear plan all through my journey from the beginning. I didn't say, at the age of 16, okay, I 100% want to be a businesswoman and this is how I'm going to do it, from A to Z. I've basically just followed my journey and seen where it's led me to. So at this point, I thought, okay, business. I have this drive, I've been working so much. This is what I want to do. So I'm going to enroll and stay on at uni after graduation to do my master's in international business. Well, again, sometimes in life you have to pivot and things happen and new opportunities come, and it's really important to recognize those when they're right in front of you. I saw a job that was actually in Leeds for a contract team for Google. And I thought, Google, I've heard that they've got sleeping pods and everything in their office and it's free food. Why would I not want to work there? So I ended up going for that job, and it was actually a support role for like the larger team within Google. And in those summer holidays of working there for about 3 months after graduation, by the time it was time for me to go back to Newcastle to do my Masters in International Business full time, I ended up getting a promotion to the full account manager's role. So the way that I ended up getting that promotion though is again putting my, putting myself out there, looking at extracurricular stuff to do, asking people, asking questions, being inquisitive and saying, can you please teach me how to do this? How does this system work? How do these Google products work? And my employers saw that initiative that I had and thought, she's ready for this job, and gave me the promotion in record time. But at the same time, again, me being me and training myself from the age of 16 to have that work ethic, to always be going above and beyond and doing extra, I decided I'm not going to give up on this Masters. I'm going to do it part-time. So I ended up enrolling and doing the Masters with the University of Birmingham part-time. So I used to work full-time, go home and do the Masters online. But this is where the story gets juicier, and I'm sure that if anybody's actually, had the opportunity to watch The Apprentice, you would have seen that I was the youngest candidate to have been on last series, and I actually ended up again trying to kind of, sway and do extra of my job. Ended up going to an event that was titled An Evening with Lord Sugar. And this event was actually one that was hosted by one of my colleagues and their agencies. And when I was there, I was basically sat in a room like this. There was Lord Sugar at the front, he'd done his bit, and then somebody had said, now you can ask questions. And it was the very last question of the night, and the person who was going with the mic said, who wants to ask this question? And of course I put my hand up, and that particular question is the one thing that ended up planting a seed for me to end up on The Apprentice. And when I ended up on The Apprentice, it wasn't easy. Like I said, I was the youngest candidate on there. When I first got on there, nobody wanted to listen to me because it was like, who is this kid that's pretty much just come out of university? And it was really, really tough for me to have my voice heard. I mean, Miss Buchanan will probably tell you that I'm a confident person as it is, but to have my voice heard and to feel like I was, out of my depth in that situation, I really had to, break some barriers and overcome my own fears, but also make sure that I don't embarrass myself on national television. So by the end of The Apprentice, even though I was the youngest candidate on there and I was probably the most underestimated person out of the 18 people that were competing, I ended up leaving with the best record of the process. So I ended up winning 8 out of 10 tasks, and I was the only person who won as project manager twice. And I know that some of you right now, you're obviously in the middle of school and you're thinking, why am I learning Pythagoras' theorem? What does this even mean for me? Why do I need to be here? But I can say that through my journey, I have never understood what the value of certain things that I've done actually have had on my life until I've got to this point when I look back. So, when I think back to being 16, the first seed that was planted in terms of, my love for fashion and going and buying and, styling the mannequins, from doing sign language and volunteering at the deaf school. When I ended up volunteering at the deaf school, it really planted a seed and love for charity. And now the business that I'm setting up is actually to have a workwear brand for women, but also with every purchase that a woman makes, some of that money will also go to clothing a child in the developing world and buying them a school uniform so that they can dress as smartly as you. So also in my job, when I was working at Google, I had to do a lot of presentations that were product-based. I would not have the guts to stand up here right now if I hadn't have thrown myself into that job and got that promotion in record time. So what I really want to say to you guys is that from the very beginning of my journey, I really didn't know what direction I was going in. But what I did was I was throwing myself into extracurricular stuff and using school as a foundation don't, think that some of the things that you do, I'm never going to use this, so it doesn't matter. I'm not really a fan of maths, so I shouldn't really try. Because you never know, in a couple of years' time, you could be on national TV having to do quick maths in your head on an apprentice task and having to, make that make or break sale. So make sure that you throw yourself into everything, recognise the opportunities, that are right in front of you, and go above and beyond. And please just remember that you are the next generation. You are basically mine and Miss Buchanan's hope when we're pensioners. So please just, use the opportunities that have been given to you, because from my perspective, not being born in this country and seeing the education system from West Africa to here, my sole responsibility was also making sure that I was, using every single opportunity that was thrown at me, and not, wasting it when there's other people as well who are, in dire need of it. So I wish you the best of luck in your studies. I'm sure that you will do, obviously, very well, especially if you've got teachers like Miss Buchanan. Whoop, whoop. And yeah, I hope that you've kind of enjoyed, listening to my story. I'm not a pop star or anything like that, but I hope that I've been able to kind of plant some seeds in your head for you to be inspired to really, put yourselves out there in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening so beautifully. We're really lucky. We've got a bit of time now for some questions. I think the first thing, before we ask some questions, I just think, because we did discuss it in form time when we did this presentation, one of the major things that set Joanna apart on this show was the fact that she was a young woman born in a different country. Obviously I'm biased, but you're obviously stunning and you do stand out for being very high fashion. Did you find that environment being in a very, what would typically be a male-dominant, white, higher class kind of category of, people that usually go for these business kind of jobs? Did you feel a difference? Did you experience any kind of prejudice, or how did you experience that? I think that'd be really interesting to go for. Yeah. And once Joanna's discussed that little bit, I think that's really important, key to hit. Can we then have any questions you've got? And then we'll have 5 minutes to ask. So Joanna's going to explain this a little bit first, and then I know some boys especially and some girls are really keen to ask some questions. Is that okay? So how do you find prejudice in situations like that in the business?
Yeah. I think for me, I've always found, since I've come out of university and started working, that whenever I walk into a room, people just jump to conclusions about what I'm like. Obviously, I absolutely love fashion, but also I've done a politics degree, so I like a bit of both in terms of, the different worlds and how they kind of conflict. It's hard, but, people will always judge you sometimes, based on first impressions or what they think or the box that they think that you should be in. And what's really interesting, actually, is that when I was you guys' age, I used to be like the dancer in my year group. So, sometimes you'll say, okay, this person's really good at football. This person, plays X amount of instruments, and this person does a lot of dancing. So any school play or any production, I went to a Catholic school, I was always kind of centre stage. So it's really interesting now when I bump into people from school and they kind of look at me like, I can't believe that you ended up going down this route. But what I would say to you guys is that don't let anybody put you in a box. If you have other interests that doesn't seem like it fits the mold in terms of what people expect you to be, or what people think will be the cool thing to do necessarily, just persevere with it. Because at the end of the day, half of the people that maybe would have given me a bit of, pressure for liking politics when I was 14 years old, right now, I'm the one that's laughing that's been able to pitch for £250,000 from Lord Sugar. So don't let anybody put you into a box. It will naturally happen sometimes that people might judge you, from when you're walking in. But I think my specific example is that, and what to remember is that your work will speak for itself. So I was underestimated at the beginning, but my work spoke for itself. 8 out of 10 tasks, and the only person to have won as project manager twice. So it really doesn't matter how people judge you to begin with.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Hands up if you've got questions. We've got a few minutes, so off you go. Thank you.
Yep.
What would you say has helped you mostly on your journey?
What would I say has helped me mostly on my journey? I would say work ethic, because some people have a lot of talent, but they don't have the work ethic. So you could be amazing at something, but if you don't work towards it, there's absolutely no point. I'd like to think I've got talent and work ethic. I'm joking, but I think work ethic for sure. And like I said, it was planted in me from the very beginning. At 16, when I was there looking for those extra jobs, looking for those extra classes in terms of sign language, volunteering, doing all these other stuff. And honestly, guys, if I hadn't have done all of that and basically built up the momentum and, you know, built up my character, by the time I'd got to 21, 22, there was absolutely no way that I would have had the strength or the tenacity to be able to do a full-time job that was stressful as it is, and also do a part-time online masters as well. So I would say work ethic is key to anything. Yeah.
What's the meaning of life?
What's the meaning of life? Ooh. What's the meaning of life? I actually don't think that there's one particular answer to that. I think the meaning of life is different for everybody. And I think we're so lucky to live somewhere like the UK where it's a multicultural society, and actually the meaning of life and what people think, you know, will fulfill them and how people want to live their lives is different for absolutely everybody. So my meaning of life could be completely different to yours and yours and yours. But for me, right now, especially being a young person still, it's about finding where my happiness is. I'm happy right now, but obviously, you know, it's about finding where, you know, my peak and my success is, where I'm like, okay, you know, I've got all these plans, I've got all my goals written down in terms of what I want to achieve in my life. I really feel content that I've ticked off the majority of those things. So I think finding that content, you know, stable place in your life where you feel like you've fulfilled, or, you know, you've learned enough about yourself. But obviously, like I say, it could be completely different for everybody else. Yeah.
Did you know what you wanted to be when you was in high school?
No, I didn't know what I wanted to be, and I think that's really kind of key to my story, that sometimes we can get a little bit discouraged because we're like, okay, you know, I don't know what I want to be, so, you know, I'll just do something in the meantime that doesn't really have much purpose. Even if you do something that's the tiniest thing, again, going back to that work ethic thing, if you really put your all into it, it will never, ever, ever be a waste. And you will always look back on it and it will never be a skill set that's wasted. So, yeah. Yep. Who's my idol as a child? Well, I think very early on, it was definitely my mum. And like I say, you know, when we first moved to the UK, we really struggled, and it was just my mum that I had to rely on, and she was working a part-time, really low-paid job as well. So she gave me that amazing example of what work ethic really means. And she basically, you know, used to obviously tell me that I can be whatever I want to be, and I listened to her. And, you know, I have been able to achieve some things that you know, I would have never, ever, ever dreamt that I'd be able to achieve right now. So I would say my mum first and foremost, and then obviously like Beyonce, Michelle Obama, the obvious ones.
One more question, so make it a good one.
Do you want to choose?
Joanna, choose a good one. You choose.
I'm going to go for the girl at the back. What inspired me to keep on going? Again, to be honest, going back to my family, I think that's what's really inspired me to keep going. Like I say, coming from a West African country who, my family aren't really, you know, like kind of worse off in West Africa, but at the same time, a lot of the opportunities that I've been able to have here, they definitely don't have over there. So, you know, there is no Lord Sugar in The Apprentice in Gambia. So I really feel as if, you know, every opportunity that comes at me, if I don't really utilise it and exploit it, then that's kind of like a waste. And it's a bit of an injustice, because I know that there's so many people out there, not just my own family, but so many people out there in the world who don't have access to free education or any of the business opportunities that I have now.
Can we have a final round of applause for Joanna, please? Just before you leave, I'm just going to remind you, Joanna's going to hang around for another 5 minutes, so if you've got any burning questions, I know some of you are really interested more about her apprentice journey and questions about how she managed to survive that. Please hang around. You know, we're not in a rush to leave, but if you are ready, socially distance them from the front. All right, off you go. Thank you so much for coming.
You know what? It's so hard. Thank you. Yeah. because like I'm looking at the little faces and I'm like, you're bored. What am I? It's crazy. Yeah. Throws you off. But with adults and stuff, I'm fine. Because I'm just like, oh, it's a hard audience. Definitely the fashion task, because I absolutely loved that. It was so good. Yeah, that was really good. And also, obviously, I won as project manager. Oh, okay. Yeah, really funny. No worries.
Right in the way, Michelle. Nice one.
Oh, thank you. That's one favourite meme. I can't tell you to. Yeah, of course. Oh, thank you. Oh, fab. Thank you. Thank you so much. I was never allowed a phone. Are they allowed? Yeah. It used to get confiscated.
I'm taking pictures of myself.
That's not nice.
Oh, thank you.
Grade 7. I don't know. Watson? No.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. So it's going to be in women's workwear, so people go to interviews, people that work at offices, things like that. I'm just going to call it Jarjue workwear, so my last name workwear. Yeah. Hardest task.
Free.
The first time I was project manager, when I had to like drive around London and do the treasure hunt task, and I had to go and find different things at low prices. That was task 5. That was definitely the hardest one. Yeah, of course.
Move! Harrop? No. Later on. Thank you.
No problem. Hi, nice to meet you. Is what, sorry? Yeah. Yeah. I think make sure you do all of the research, because it's always business is one of those things that you've got to really have guts to do it, because there are a lot of risk, and it's good that you know that to begin with. So when you're writing your business plan, make sure that all your numbers are correct and you do all the kind of risk assessments. And if you can find any mentors of anyone who's been in that kind of industry, a lot of the time they can help you by telling you, you know, like mistakes before you make them. So I would definitely say find someone that you can look up to, someone that you can ask questions and just literally ask as much as possible. Okay. Yeah. No.
It's kind of one of those things that I might
Yeah.
really enjoy.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask you what was your
Yeah, I think as well, if it's something that you're really passionate about, you will naturally want to do all of the research for it anyway, and you'll join any kind of networking clubs, and you follow every single social media, and you'll basically live and breathe it. So for me, I had to do fashion, because if I tried to do like a plumbing company or something like that, I wouldn't care, and it just wouldn't be as much of a success. So I think find something that you're really passionate about, definitely research it fully, and also try to find a mentor. You should have asked that question when we were thinking to other people, but nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Thank you. You guys are a tough crowd. I saw people like yawning. I was like, oh, am I that bad? Hi. Yeah, of course.
No.
Oh, Miss Buchanan, thank you.
Trail.
I know, yeah.
Daniel.
Really come and meet you.
What do you mean by influence? Like the type of jobs that I picked? No, not really. I kind of just looked at what am I interested in, what pays decent money, and then just kind of did it. But honestly, guys, I can't stress more how important it is to try and get your CV up, you know, from the very beginning and get experience for sure. Do you have any idea what you want to do?
I was thinking of what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
You said you did like
Yeah.
before I went to the
All right then.
Oh, wow. You could do anything, basically. You actually can with that. Yeah. No, I think that especially when you get to like after school, stylists are always looking for little assistants. So whatever you want to do, try to find a mentor, someone you can learn from. If you can be their little assistant on the weekend, and you're lucky because you're in Manchester, which is like the fashion hub. So you don't know, who's going to be around. Try to get on LinkedIn. You heard of LinkedIn? It's like the social network for professional people. So if you start like researching people who do the type of job that you want to do, and then like look at what path they've gone through, or message them and say, can I come and spend like a Saturday with you to see what you do and shadow you and stuff? And you never know, that could be like your mentor for life. Start, reaching out to people and, seeing how they can help you, or if they've got any advice with your future plans. It probably wouldn't be paid, so I'm not sure, but there's nothing stopping you from introducing yourself to somebody anyway. Or if there's, ask your parents as well, because have you heard of, what's it called? It's like a event platform, Eventbrite. Eventbrite. So they list like loads of different events that are going on in the city. So if there's some that are on a weekend that are to do with fashion or something like that, see if one of your parents will take you with them. And then that's how you get to meet people. Just come up to them and make that contact. Yeah. Good luck. Hi. Yeah, of course. Okay.
I look forward. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So what have you done so far? You've got your logo. Okay. Have you got it on social media? Is it for young kids?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's open edition. It has its own. So it has its own edition.
Okay.
I don't know what to post.
Yeah.
Like Instagram pictures. So
Yeah.
I don't know what to post. I'm not starting anything.
Yeah.
Starting.
I think start with what your brand actually means. What type of person would want to wear your brand? You know, is it? Yeah, I think if you find a distinctive style, then you'll know what kind of content you'll want to post. So, for example, if you know the type of girl that would wear my dress would listen to this kind of music, then obviously you will post like Justin Bieber's got a new song, or you know, or you'll, I don't know, you'll post like style things for you, you know, like to get the following up kind of thing. And another thing that you can do is once you've got your designs up, start looking at big like kids pages. You know, sometimes with like posts where it's like it might say kids with style or something like that. Once you've got your product, reach out to them and say, will you post this for me? Will you, you know what I mean? And that's how you'll end up getting your following up. But I would say it's really important for you to understand exactly what type of person, because then you end up posting all sorts of random stuff and people won't follow you because they'll just think, whereas if someone lands on your page, they should think, this is a bit of me, like I want to follow this person for sure. So you know, stick with the colour scheme, know what you're going to launch with to begin with. It's just t-shirts you're going to do to begin with.
Yeah, I want to t-shirts.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think you need to start like reaching out to other kid pages, blogs or whatever. Do it when you've got something, you know what I mean, to give them, to gift someone, or something that somebody might want to repost, and you need to make connections. So you've got your brand, and what would is it the clothes making that you want to do next?
Yeah.
Have you got like the funding for that?
She said, I'm going to go to university.
Okay.
So when we're designing it, we're going to put it out to marketplace. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
A lot of things she said. And then it's going to come to life.
Yeah.
We're going to have products, but I don't know how long it's going to take.
Yeah.
After Easter, I've got this business meeting with her.
Right.
So I'm not sure how long it's going to take. But I don't know what to do now.
Yeah. But you've got you know what the designs will look like, don't you? So you can start like posting like little hints of what the designs will be like, or you know how people do mood boards and stuff. If you've got a colour scheme, say if you were doing all multiple colours, like t-shirts or prints, like what's the colour scheme of the t-shirts? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 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 I think then if it's about like inspirational quotes and kind of like go-getter quotes and things like that, start looking at some young children that have really done amazing things. So like I've seen before on a TV show, there's been like 2 kids that are like twins that are like really cool DJs. So you use them as like an example of the type of person that people would want to aspire to. So I would post things like that. Obviously there's been that massive march in America. You should be like promoting those people and saying this is the type of person who would wear my t-shirt. And then when it launches, then it all makes sense. Yeah. Yeah? Good luck.
Thank you.
Oh, I think you'll do really well.
I'll take a picture of you.
It's natural beauty, yeah?
She's amazing.
Did you take the one with the hug?
Was she the person that you said that? Yeah. Oh,
Oh, hey.
come on, come in.
They're really scared.
Why?
Your hair needs to look, guys. I can't even show my own trees. No, you're irrelevant in this now. Come on, Brittany.
Nice to meet you.
Let's talk about her.
Do you guys need more pictures or are you all good? You got pictures?
Yeah.
Fab. So Philip,
Can you just stop put it on?
ready?
Me.
Oh, we have to wait for Philip because he's been waiting for 15 minutes.
Okay.
waiting since the bell.
Okay, so you can wait some more?
Hi.
What time?
Nice to meet you, by the way. Oh, you've dropped your pen. Sorry. That was me. Did she say anything interesting?
Yeah, I told her about the business idea when to start.
Yeah. I would say don't waste too much energy trying to change people's minds whose minds have already been made up in terms of what box you're in. You're in school from 9 till 3. Let them do that. You're here, luckily you've got set subjects anyway, you know, in terms of you know, what you have to do. But outside of school is your own time. No one knows what you have to do. If you want to learn another instrument and not tell anybody about it, do that. If you want to research about something, do that as well. So I think, you know, put more energy into whatever your real passion is rather than trying to change those people's minds. And in the end, your success at whatever your passion is will change their mind anyway, and they'll forget that first kind of box that they put you in the first place. Yeah. Was that the only question? It's okay if it is. What year are you in? 9. Wow.
Will you guys finish up top?
Yeah. I didn't. It was literally just something that I enjoyed. But I think sometimes, you know, when you're that young, you don't think, oh, this is what, or one day I might own my own shop. You know, I was very naive at that point. I just thought I love this. But I really didn't know. I just knew that it was something that was a passion of mine, but it ended up coming all full circle. And it's worked out great.
I am a makeup guru, that's the thing. I don't fit.
You back to, have you finished now? Oh, well.